Okay. Once again, good morning to all the students, right? Welcome to the second part of the lecture of module 3, okay? That is fire prevention and detection, okay? Uh, am I audible, students? You can hear me? Yes, students, you can hear me?
Yes,
Okay, great. Okay. So here, I hope you have all checked the last video, okay, and what types of fire extinguishers, what exactly is fire, right? And basically, which type of fire extinguisher is used for what type of fire, right? What is the source of the fire? How to identify what is the source of the fire? Everything was clear in the last lecture, okay. So we'll just go with the video, okay, of how to use the fire extinguisher, right? So I'll just show you the video of how to use the fire extinguisher, and then we'll move ahead with the electrical safety. Okay. Can you hear it, students? Yes, students, can you hear it?
yes.
Okay. So I hope this is very clear. Class A basically is used for wood and paper. Okay. Class B is basically used for gasoline and oil, that is flammable liquids. Class C is used for electrical fires. D basically for flammable metal, that is magnesium and titanium. And K, that is last class, is used for cooking fires and all those things, right? So this I have already explained in the previous classes, right? So let us see how to use this particular fire extinguisher in case of fire. Friends, just a minute. The video will start up. Okay, until it starts, I'll just move on to the next part of this particular module. Okay. So, my dear students, I hope it's very clear how to use the fire extinguisher. It is through the pass method. First thing is you have to identify whether whatever fire has broken out, is it, is it possible to extinguish that particular fire, or it has grown up to that level wherein it cannot be extinguished. If it cannot be extinguished, you have to immediately search for the emergency exit and move on with the emergency exit without looking in for fire extinguisher and all those things, right? If it can be extinguished, it is in a level of being extinguished, then probably you have to use this pass method. Okay, so you have to take the pin out, then afterwards squeeze it, put it at the level, squeeze it, okay, and then wait to see whether again the fire it becomes high or whatever it is. Okay, and then you have to see to it that you just extinguish the entire fire completely, right? So that's what we speak about the fire extinguishers and all those things. Moving on to the next one, my dear students, that is electrical safety. Okay, so is the screen visible? Students, is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when we speak about electrical safety, so if you could see many a times anywhere you go, okay, you find the electrical safety boards and all those things, right? So basically, they say just I have just taken one particular thing here, which pictorial representation. It says just say no to electrical hazards. Okay. So before you turn it on, make sure you say no to the following. So are outlets, motors, and circuits overloaded? You have to check into that. Are cords running near the heat or water source, or are cords twisted or tangled? Do see the spark or smoke? Are my hands wet when I'm touching these wires or electrical circuits? Am I wearing a metal jewelry? All these are basic things which we need to check to prevent any electrical hazards. Okay, so basically what is this electricity? Okay, electricity is nothing but movement of free electrons between the atoms. Okay, so electricity is the movement of free electrons between the atoms. So related terms of this are current. Basically many a times we just speak about electricity as current also. That is nothing but movement of electrical charge. Okay, then resistance. There are certain oppositions to current flow, that is nothing but resistance. Then you have voltage. Okay, so a measurement of electrical force, you can modulate that particular force. Okay, that's what we speak about electricity. Now when we speak about electrical hazards, okay, so here this is being termed as be safe. B is nothing but burns, and E is nothing but electrocution. Okay, S is nothing but shock. A is nothing but arch flash or arch blast, and then fire and explosions. Okay, so these are basically when we see basically the electrical hazards which do take place. Fine. Now when I say burns, okay, burns are most common shock related injuries. These are most common shock related injuries which you could see here. Okay, so there are three types of electrical burns. One is electrical burn, that is then you have arch flash, then you have thermal contact. So electrical burn is nothing but it results from heat generated by the flow of electrical current through the body. So when the current flows in your body, so that time some heat is generated and then it causes the burn. Okay, on the body. Then you have arch or flash burns. These are nothing but high temperature burns caused by an electrical arc or basically due to an explosion. Okay, and then we have thermal contact burns. These are nothing but it occurs when skin comes in contact with overheated electrical equipments. These are thermal contacts. Okay, so that's what we speak about the burns. Apart from that, the next one is next electrical hazards is the electrocution. Okay, electrocution is nothing but it is obviously it's very fatal. Okay, so it can also kill a person with that particular electrical shock. Okay, so it results when a human is exposed to a lethal amount of electrical energy. So when the person probably live wires, when you touch the live wires, immediately the person gets electrocuted. So here high voltage live wires will be there. that causes the electrocution of a particular person. So it results in when a human is exposed to a lethal amount of electrical energy. So electrocution results basically when there is a lethal amount of electrical energy. Then you have next electrical hazards, that is shocks. Okay, so shock is nothing but body becomes part of a electrical circuit. Okay, so here uh, shock results when the body becomes part of electrical circuit, that is current enters the body at one point and leaves at the another. So whenever there is a shock, immediately, probably if you have touched the live wires with the right hand, okay, and you got a shock, suddenly the electricity flows from the right hand to the right part of the body, and it goes away from the right leg. Okay, that's what we say. It enters at one point and leaves at one point. That is shock, sudden shock. Okay, so here reflex response to passage of electrical current through the body. Okay, so here electrical shock is defined as the reflex response to the passage of electrical current through the body. Okay, one part of the body. Then afterwards you have the electrical hazards, that is arch flash or arch blast. Okay, so here when we speak about arch flash or arch blast, it is nothing but sudden release of electrical energy. Suddenly there is a release of electrical energy through air when a high voltage gap exists. Okay, and there is a breakdown between conductors. Okay, when there is a breakdown between the conductors, a high voltage gap does exist, and that releases a sudden electrical energy through air. Okay, so gives off thermal radiation, that is heat. When this electrical energy is released, it gives off thermal radiation, that is heat, and bright intense light that causes burns. Okay, so temperature is as high as 35,000 degree Fahrenheit. Okay, so that's what we speak about the arch flash or arch blast. Okay, then you have the arch blast. Okay, so arch blast basically is high voltage arch can also produce considerable pressure waves. Okay, by rapidly heating the air and creating a big blast. Okay, so here what happens is arch flash can be spontaneous or result from inadvertently building electrical contacts with the conducting object. So other causes may include drop tools or the buildup of conductive dust. Okay, or maybe the corrosion which happens. Okay, so that's what we say the high arch blast. Then you have the next electrical hazard, that is fire. Okay, so here when you speak about fire, uh, it mostly results from problems with fixed wiring. Okay, so here basically the most electrical distribution fires result from problems with fixed wiring, such as faulty electrical outlets and old wiring. Okay, if that is there, then that causes fire. Then problems with cords, plugs, receptacles, and switches also cause electrical fire. Okay, such as extension cords or appliances cords, which is very much faulty. Okay, it causes electrical fire. Then you have the next electrical hazard, that is explosion. It occurs basically when electricity ignites explosive mixtures of material in the air. Okay, so here when the electricity occurs, this particular explosion occurs when electricity ignites explosive mixtures of material in the air. Okay, so here what happens is one particular note is to be taken into consideration. Electricity is the source of these hazards. Okay, so here it is just the source of these hazards. All these hazards are equally important, and lesson is nothing but focuses on eliminating electrical hazards. Fine. So this particular what I'm going to deal next will basically look into eliminating these electrical hazards. How can you take precautions to eliminate these electrical hazards? Okay, apart from that, if you could see is examples of fatal accidents. Okay, worker electrocuted when the ladder came in contact with the overhead power lines, or maybe worker electrocuted when the mast came into contact with high voltage overhead lines and all those things, right? We see many of these cases. Or worker changing energy blast on the light fixtures was electrocuted and fell into the concrete floor while working from the 8-inch fiberglass step ladder and all those things. So these are various electrical hazards which we see. Now moving on to electrical safety, my dear students. So electrical causes include distribution wires, appliances, portable tools, or other electrical processes which produce ignition source such as welding. Okay, so here fire can be ignited by overheating or by spark created by arch. Okay, so electrical safety. When we speak about electrical safety, uh, we have to understand how electrical equipments work. Okay, so here I think someone needs to join here. Okay. So here, when we speak about electrical equipments, right? Electrical equipments basically operate because electrical energy flows through a circuit. So when you switch on the light, the electrical energy flows through the circuit and then the electrical equipment start working. Okay. So here, potential of energy of circuit, that is voltage, is given by relation. Okay. So here, how much of electricity, that is voltage, is to be passed on, that particular potential is being given by relation. What is this relation? E is equal to IR. Now E is nothing but voltage or potential in volts. Okay, I is nothing but current measured in amperes. Okay, R is nothing but resistance measured in ohms. Fine. So power P in any circuit is measured in watts and is given by relation, that is P is equal to IE or P is equal to I square E. Okay, so heat is generated within the wires of the circuit when current flows and can be described by the relation H, that is heat, is equal to I square RT. So when whereas T is nothing but time. So these are the various formulas which are being given for working of electrical equipments, right? So it is nothing but the current which injures people in contact with the electricity. So what injures the people? It is nothing but the current. So hazards of electrical appliances is due to resistance of our skin for conduction of the current. Okay, when our skin resists, that time what happens is these hazards happen. So death can result from asphyxiation of caused due by respiratory interferences, either from muscular contraction or paralysis of central nervous system and affect the heart. Okay, so here whenever the electricity passes and our body resists it, okay, so that time a lot of respiratory interferences will be there, muscular contractions will be there, or paralysis may be caused of central nervous system. Ultimately, it affects the heart and it affects in stoppage of the heart, which causes the death. Then electrical burns are usually deep, very painful, and slow to heat. Fine. Apart from that, my dear students, we have safe electrical circuits. Okay. So here the consequences of electrical hazards are fire and injuries. Fine. So what are the consequences of electrical hazards? Either it causes fire or either it causes injury to a particular person. So engineering methods with which electrical consequences control are also different. Fine. So here when the consequences are different, obviously the methods of controlling it also will be different. So equipments can be protected by eliminating fire and protecting people by overload protecting and by grounding the wires properly. Okay, so overload protection is fuses or circuit breakers and all those things, right? Then grounding, basically GFCI, that is ground fault circuit interrupters. So these are mainly instances where the grounds are improperly installed, okay, or faults does not lead to current overload. Okay, so thus leading to raise voltage, which cause extreme hazards to the personnel. So for this reason, GFCI requires to be provide for better protection for basically the ground faults, whatever is there. Okay, the grounding part of it, GFCI is to be located. Now, what is this GFCI? Okay, if you could see here in this particular picture. Okay, so here this is nothing but the use of ground fault circuit interrupters. Fine. So here it is designed basically to protect people from electrical shocks. This particular thing is designed to protect people from electrical shocks, as well as detect ground faults, whatever ground faults are there, and the interruptions in the electrical current because of those faults, as well as the it limits the duration of electrical shocks. Okay, so this is the use of GFCI. Okay, this is one of the electrical protection method. Now, apart from that, there are three types of GSIs, that is receptible GFI. Okay, and then you have basically the other one, that is the temporary or portable GFI. Okay, as well as circuit breaker GFI. Okay, so a note is to be taken care into consideration here. If the light or tool, okay, that is other product, remain on when the test button is pushed, the GFCI is not working properly or has been incorrectly installed, okay, or miswired. If this is the case, a qualified electrician or equivalent to qualified electrician, that is licensed certified electrician or registered electrician, need to be contacted for properly wiring and replacing the GFCI device. So placement of this is also very important. You have to place it in a very right way. Okay, now when we speak about receptible GFCI, it is often found on construction work sites. Okay, you find this type of receptible GFCI into constructible work sites or outdoor areas or other locations where damp condition do or could exist. Okay, basically when there is a damp condition wherein the walls can be damped or wet or something like that, so that time they use this type of GFCI, that is receptible GFCI. Apart from that, you have temporary or a portable GFCI. This is the temporary or portable GFCI. So that time, this particular AP protectable GFCI is an extension cord combined with with the GFCI. Okay, so it adds flexibility in using receptacles that are not protected by GFCI. Okay, so extension cords with GFCI protection incorporated should be used when permanent protection is unavailable. So you can use this particular GFCI when there is no permanent protection available. Okay, then you have circuit breaker GFCI. Okay, so here this particular GFCI circuit breaker controls an entire circuit. Okay, and is installed in a replacement for a circuit breaker on the main circuit board. Okay, so rather than installing multiple GFCI outlets, one GFCI circuit breaker can protect the entire circuit. Okay, so at sites equipped with circuit breakers, this type of GFCI might be installed in a panel box to give protection to the selected circuits. So circuit breakers basically, these are it should be tested monthly. Okay, and you keep in mind that test will disconnect power to everything on the circuit. So if it is off, it disconnects the power to all the circuits. So that's what we say circuit breaker. Okay, then you have inspect portable tools and extension cords. Okay, so here extension cords may have damaged insulation. Okay, so sometimes the insulations inside an electrical tool or appliance is damaged. Okay, so when the installation is damaged, exposed to metal parts, it becomes energized if a live wire inside touches the metal part. Okay, so that should not happen. So here what happens is it inspect the portable tools and extension cords. So worker need to inspect the extension cords prior to their use for the any cuts or abrasion. So electric hand tools that are old, damaged or misused may have the damaged insulation inside. Then you have use power tools and equipments as designed. That is one of the electrical protection method. Okay, so here what happens is you follow the tool safety tips to avoid misused equipments, follow manufacturing instructions. Okay, and you use only equipments that are approved. Okay, and you use all equipments according to the manufacturing instructions. That is main point here. Okay, and then you have the electrical protection methods, that is common examples of misused equipments. If you could see here, these are various common examples of misused equipments. Okay, so here using multiple receptacle boxes designed to be mounted by fitting them with the power cord or placing them on the floor. Okay, Then fabricating extension cord with Romex wire, using equipment outdoors that is labeled for use only in dry and indoor locations, attaching ungrounded two-prong adapter plugs to three-prong cords or tools, then using circuit breakers or fuses with the wrong rating for overcurrent protection. That is example, that is using 30 ampere breaker in the system with 15 to 20 ampere receptacles. So protection is lost because it will not trip when the system load has been exceeded. Okay, then using modified cords or tools, that is ground prongs removed, or plates in solutions, everything etc is removed. Then using cords or tools with worn insulation or exposed wires. Okay, so that is very much wrong. So you have to see to it that these things do not they are not to be used. Okay, and then tool safety tips are to be followed. Never carry a tool by a cord. Okay, and then basically, you know, never yank the cord to disconnect it. Never keep the cord away from the heat. Keep the cord very much away from the heat, oil and sharp edges. Disconnect when not in use and when changing accessories such as blades and bits and all those things, right? And then basically avoid accidental startings. Okay, do not fold fingers on the switch button while carrying a plugged in tool. Okay, use gloves and appropriate footwears while working on it, and store in a dry place when not in use. Okay, so these are various electrical protection things which have to be considered. Fine. Then don't use wet damp environments. Keep working areas well lit. Ensure cords do not cause a trip to hazard. Remove damaged tools from use double insulated tools. Okay, these are various electrical protection methods. Apart from that, you have follow lockout or tag out, that is LOTO procedure. Okay, now what is this LOTO procedure basically? Okay, it is an essential safety procedure that protects workers from injury while working on or near electrical circuits and equipment. So in addition, lockout tag out prevents contact with operating equipment parts such as blades, gears, shafts, etc. Okay, so that's what we say about the LOTO. So it protects workers from injuries while working near the electrical circuits, and it prevents contact with operating equipment such as blades, gears, and shafts. Okay. Then you have the next one, that is the LOTO prevents the unexpected release of hazardous gases, fluids, and solid matters in area where workers are present. So if you could see here, a lockout all machinery prior to servicing. Failure to comply will result in the disciplinary action. These are warnings which are being put forth. Okay, so certain warnings will be put forth. Fine. And basically, it is basically to protect against being electrocuted. Workers need to follow lockout tagout procedures when performing lockout tagout on circuits and equipments. The following checklist have to be used. Okay, so what is that checklist? That identify all sources of electrical energy for the equipments or circuits in question. Disable backup energy source such as generator and batteries. Identify all shutoffs for each energy source. Notify all personnel that equipments and circuitry must be shut off, locked off, or tagged off. Okay, and then shut off energy sources. Lock switch gears in off position. Each worker should apply his or her individual lock and keep keys kept with the workers. Okay, test equipments and circuitries. Deplete storage energy. Okay, apply a lock or tag to alert other workers that an energy source or a piece of equipment has been locked and tagged out. Make sure all workers are safe and accounted for before equipment and circuits are unlocked and turned back off. Okay, all these are various things or which have to be followed by the employees, right? Apart from that, you have power source identification. You have to identify the source of power. Okay, so here basically power source identification. Make sure that all breakers are marked accordingly with the circuits they protect. Make sure that all disconnect means are marked according to the equipments they service. Make sure all voltages are identified with proper labeling. That is very important. Okay, then you have the next one, that is product safety. Okay, now when you speak about product safety, it is nothing but quality product that is one that meets or exceeds customer standards and expectations. Okay, so whenever you have a product, there is some instruction being written on that about the product safety, how to use it safely. Okay, so product safety is intimately associated with consumers. Fine. So to ensure consumer safety, product liability law was introduced. Uh, so product liability law was developing a parallel increase of public concerns for this safety was also developed. This has led to passage of Consumer Product Safety Act (CPSA) in 1972. So the purpose of the act is basically to protect public against unreasonable risks of injury associated with consumer problems, then assisting consumers in evaluating the safety of the consumer products, promote research and investigation into the cause and prevention of product um, safety, and see to it that and identify the causes and prevention of product related to death, illness and injuries. Fine. So technical requirement of product safety program. The product safety program is basically carried out in 5 steps. One is design review. They review the entire design one by one. We'll see in the next slides. Documentation and change control, purchase, product control, manufacturing and quality control, packaging and marketing. So here, if you could see design review, so this product design process is divided into 3 stages. One is conceptual stage, intermediate stage, and final pre-production stage. So conceptual stage basically is nothing but um, functions, performance, features, cost to produce. Okay, function. Performance features, cost to produce, life expectancy, environment for use, special characteristics such as safety instructions. Everything is nothing but conceptual stage. Okay, in case of certain situations, what exactly you are supposed to do, right? And all those things do come into conceptual stage. Intermediate stage is nothing but preparation for layouts, electrical system, schematics. Okay, specifications and need for initiating tooling and all those things, right? Apart from that, you have final pre-production stage, which is basically detailed schematics and drawing with tolerance, material, manufacturing process, and all those things, right? So this CPSC suggests that persons representing production, quality control, consumer services, and management personnel comprise the design review committee. Okay, so every organization will have this particular design review committee wherein they look into the safety of the materials, right? So this committee basically addresses the design safety, which also takes preliminary hazards analysis (PHA) into account. So they just go into preliminary hazard analysis and see to it that they design the things in such a way that safety of the employee is being ensured. So once this particular preliminary hazard analysis is being completed, then the beginning of the formal design review process can take place. Fine. Then you have documentation and change control. So accounting is a financial document essential for effective management. So technical record keeping is necessary for effective management. They go for technical record keeping. What records are being kept? It is the record of product development have been produced in litigation matters when specifically requested and can be used as evidence. Okay, so that record is being kept. So any changes in design, production, distribution have to be controlled and incorporated in all documents. So everything has to be documented. Okay, it may be any records. Okay, so, step-by-step procedures, or maybe any changes which have happened. Everything is to be neatly recorded and documented. Then purchase a product control. Okay, CPSC has established some purchase product control actions, which is applicable as follows. First one is purchase document should be very much clear. Okay, concise with respect to the design, material, and safety specifications. Okay, so how the material is designed. Okay, and how what are the safety precautions have to be taken place, have to be documented, right? The purchase document should include it. Apart from that, select proven vendors. You have to have proven vendors. Basically, for example, we use ISI marks, right, for certain products and all those things to purchase certain products. So that's what we say, proven vendors or certified vendors. Then verify conformance of supplies to contractual requirements. Okay, attend to promote corrective actions when necessary. Okay, whenever it is necessary, whenever change is required, you have to have corrective actions. Then agreement on responsibility of suppliers for reporting hazards to the manufacturer. So there should be an agreement with the suppliers that if any hazard occurs, that particular report is to be sent to the supply to the manufacturer who is manufacturing that particular product. Okay, and immediate action has to be taken. So manufacturing and quality control, that is one of the, but this considers basically the task, the machinery and the worker. So machinery and procedures should be confirm all safety regulations. So machinery and the procedures should be in line with the safety regulations, as well as the workers should also be certified for critical tasks such as welding and brazing. So you cannot simply put any person on that particular work. The worker should be certified for that. And the machinery, when you are purchasing and when the procedures you are looking at, it should be all into the safety regulations. It should abide by the safety regulations. Then equal interest should be given in detecting manufacturing defects to prevent user injury. So once you have purchased a particular machine or whatever it is, okay, so you should see to it that you detect the manufacturing defects in prior, okay, to use. Afterwards, it should not happen that you use and then it causes injury and then you start understanding that this was a defect. That should not happen. So whereas design the defect can affect all the safety of the units of the product. Okay, so procedures include various inspections. So you, for understanding the manufacturing defects or whatever it is. So first thing you have to do is inspection and testing procedures of that particular machine. Selected depending on the nature of the specific product based upon random sample testing. So if you are purchasing any chemical or maybe any machinery or whatever it is, okay. So that time you have to see to it that you inspect it properly, you test the things in a proper way by having very much um, testing procedures based on specific product, okay, based on random sample test, okay, statistical analysis of the results and all those things, right? Analyze the test results fairly with respect to the user safety. Apart from that, packaging and material marketing, packaging can be important as there are some instructions and warnings on the package. So these arise as the duty to warn the hazards which cannot be eliminated or reduced. So certain hazards cannot be eliminated or reduced. Okay, but only thing is when you are using that particular material, you have to follow or abide by certain rules and regulations or abide by certain procedures, safety procedures, and you have to use that particular product. Okay, so the product is desirable for societal needs, so you have to use it. So you have to see to it that whatever instruction is being given on the packaging, you have to follow those instructions, right? Then you have basically we come down to the end of module 3, my dear students. This is a question bank. Okay, so this particular video will be posted in the group. You can have a glance through this question bank, that is define fire and explain various types of fires, right? Classify the different types of fires and list the cause of for each type of fire. Name the different types of fire based on fuel, and also list different types of fire extinguishers for dousing the fire. What are the fire extinguishers? List various fire extinguishing techniques and explain any two of them. Right? Define product safety. Give the technical requirements for product safety. Write a note on fire development and its severity, effects of enclosures, early detection of fire, and electrical safety. Okay. So this is end of module 3. Thank you very much, students. Right? And I would like to ask, do you have any questions, students? Any questions? Any part of it is not understood? Any questions you have? Yes, Anirudh Pattar, please unmute yourself. Anirudh Pattar, can you please unmute yourself? Karuna Badave. Okay, if there are no questions, then we'll end the class, right? So next class will be taken by Rajshekar sir, right? So here basically the next class will be conducted only after your internals. Okay, so you can have a glance through all the videos of module 1, module 2, and module 3. And if you have any questions, you can connect to the related professors and then you can ask questions whatever you have, or doubts whatever you have related to those modules. Okay, and then we'll be clarifying the doubts. Fine. So only after your internals, the next classes, the module 4 will be conducted after your internals. So please concentrate on your internals, and then look in for the videos, write down the questions whatever you have, and connected to those questions. Module 1 you can ask to Rohit Raj sir, module 2 you can ask to Varsha ma'am, module 3 you can ask to me. Any doubt is there, I will 100% rectify your doubts. Okay, or whatever doubts you have, I will surely give the response to or answers to those doubts. Okay, so see to it that you have um, better understanding of all the modules. Stay home, be safe. Thank you very much, students.